One of the most popular things you see now in media, especially in movies and TV shows, is breaking the fourth wall, is making you and remind you that you are watching something on the television. And this is something that's also done in fiction as well. This is something that's also done in literature. So today we're going to talk about these works, and I will call these works metafiction. I think that's a fairly good way to describe them. But these are just books that experiment with the genre, that try to do things in a very intentional way to kind of break the mold of normal writing. And in some ways it's very, very interesting. In other ways it's very, very annoying and can lose some of that charm that a greatly told story has. But these are perhaps some of the most interesting books I've ever read. And yeah, please let me know if you have any other books like this. I know Finnegan's Wake, but I have not read it. I know Murakami writes in a very similar style to Borges, but I have not read them, so I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not going to go into depth about them. But please, please, please tell me other books like this, because this is a very fun genre to read. So the first thing we have is perhaps the most famous book that is meant to make no sense, that is meant to push the boundaries, that is meant for everything to be a joke and every aspect of this to be debated for 100 years, as James Joyce himself said. So this is Ulysses. If you haven't read Ulysses, you have a life, and I really urge you to not pick it up because it's a headache. This book truly is a headache. I think that's the best way to put it. One of the other authors that I'm going to talk about later, Borges, said that Ulysses is a book to be admired, not to be read, in the sense that it's a great feat of writing because it's so confusing and so complex and so just all over the place that it's almost impressive that James Joyce himself wasn't locked in a padded room because of how complex this was. And yeah, it's a story that loosely follows the story of the Odyssey, and that's really all the connection there is to reality. There's shifting narratives, there's jokes, there's things spelled incorrectly. Really, the greatest way to go through this book is to read it out loud in a group and then talk about what just happened. That's the only way to make sense of it. But essentially, Joyce created something that is for some reason enjoyed. And I don't know why I like it. I don't know why I'm fascinated by it. Perhaps it's the fact that I can't understand it on the first try. Perhaps it's the fact that you can't understand it, but you can feel the heart of what you're reading while you're reading it. And it's one of those works that you come out reading and you're like, I don't know if I understood any of it, but I liked it. And I really have to put it at that. But if you really are willing to put in the time and do some outside research and pick up companion books and read those companion books as you're going through Ulysses, I think you're going to have a really, really fun time. And it's like becoming engulfed in a world inside of itself, and at all moments the world is ever expanding, and just there's a whole lot of things in this book, and I think you'll find something if you read it. But again, very, 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 very just frustrating, and will make you pull your hair out. Hence why, not actually, I wish that was the reason. But yeah, on to the next thing. The next thing is the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson, right? Yeah, Robert Shea. Okay, yeah. I didn't remember the other guy's name, but Robert Anton Wilson is one of my favorite authors. And the Illuminatus trilogy was certainly inspired by Ulysses, and they took a lot of aspects of Ulysses and the writings, but it's so much more easy to understand. But because you can understand it, it might actually make it more difficult to understand, because they purposely had people lying. There's purposely shifting perspectives. You don't trust any of the narrators. You don't trust anything that's being said. It's all stories and legends and fables, and essentially centers around the revival of the Bavarian Illuminati and those sorts of ideas. And it plays with every conspiracy from the last century. I think this was written in 1975, and I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, this must have been the first exposure that people heard about JFK's, the assassination attempt and other events that were very suspicious. But I feel like there was a huge trust for the media, a lot more back in the day. And I can imagine reading this and being completely terrified, but now it's just I don't believe anything anymore. It's quite unfortunate, but this book will really just make you think, and it'll really make you shift your perspective. And there's a whole lot of craziness in it. It's a whole lot of fun to read. There's some weird parts about it that I'm not particularly interested in, but again, I love what Robert Anton Wilson has to say, and he's a very fun and very just he has this weird side of himself where he just wants to break all of your preconceived notions down and really do it in a funny way and make you shift yourself into a mindset of, I think this, but I'm not sure. And that's really the whole point of this entire work. And I hopefully want you to pick this up because it's a very fun read, but I really wouldn't if you're looking for a story that is directly straight and narrow, that is not all over the place, that makes sense. Because I read the Illuminatus, the what is it, the Eye in the Pyramid, I think it is. I read the first book of this series, and I don't know if I know anything. I had fun reading it. There was a whole lot of stuff in it. There was a lot of threads to unwind, and it was certainly interesting, but I can't tell you anything that happened in the story, and I think it's meant to be that way. So, with that said, without further ado, we'll get into Ficciones, or Fictions, by Jorge Luis Borges. One of my new favorite books. This is one of the most impressive things I've ever read. If you've never read anything by Borges, I really urge you to pick this up because this is his finest work. And, you know, it's a collection of short stories, so I don't want to say all of the works are like this, but he uses different mediums to somewhat explore the idea of life. And so Borges' life was a labyrinth, and it was unfolding in infinite possibilities. And you know, he cites various other authors. That's the thing that I love about him, is that Borges was very much inspired by a lot of different people. So you can see him give reverence and give respect to different authors and play with their ideas. And it's always fun to see authors inspired by authors that you love. And, you know, it's like a real connection. And I know exactly what they're talking about when they talk about a name, when they talk about an emotion that's evoked in a certain way. And it's really amazing. And to describe what Borges does is, especially in his best story, is he writes a story about a fictional encyclopedia article, about a fictional book that was the center of a religion, of a fictional society that could create things through their mind, that could manifest things purely out of thought. And it's just extremely interesting to see this develop into somewhat of a story and somewhat of just a tale that you become engrossed in. And what Borges does so perfectly is he creates this dreamlike world, and in this dreamlike world, it's so similar to our reality that it changes our perception. It makes us see things from a different perspective. It makes us see things in a different manner. And I guess the culmination of this entire video is that these books will make you see the world in a different manner, because it breaks down your need for a coherent story. It breaks down your need to have a linear sense of this happens and then this happens. But no, in fact, thousands or millions or billions or infinite amount of causes are causing the exact existence that you're experiencing, and we all experience it differently. So then these shifting perspectives go to collect and create the world as we know it. And is the world even real? Is the world even as we appear, as it appears to us as it is right now? And I think these are all interesting questions, and these are all questions that there's no answer to, but it's something that we can feel through these authors. So yeah, let me know what you think about these books. Please let me know more books like this. And yeah, hopefully I'll have some more to add to this list in the future. But that's all. I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.